September 19, 1944. A Panther crew waits in Münsterbusch 6 miles from Aachen, with the cold promise that their gun can kill any Sherman before it comes close. They are the last thin wall of a retreating army. In the cellar below them, a family holds its breath. In front of them, the Siegfried Line's concrete teeth bite into the horizon. Their sergeant counts seconds, not glory. He wants one clean shot and a way to go home alive. He does not know the American tank rolling. Toward his street carries the name in the mood for the 3rd time, or that its commander has destroyed more German machines in 3 months than any other American. He only knows the smell of diesel and damp plaster, the weight of silence before a decision, and the fear that the war has moved too close to his own doorway. The Reich once promised victory at long range, Panthers, 88s, precision optics, perfect angles, but defeat has shrunk the war to alleys, windows, and ambush. Fuel is low. Ammunition is counted. Young men grow old in a season. They fight on their own soil now, under their own roofs, for a country that is already slipping away. Across the rubble, a tall American stands exposed in his hatch. He has orders to stay on the flank and stay safe for a war bonds tour. He does not believe in safety. He believes in moving fast, shooting first, and closing the distance until numbers and doctrine stop mattering. This is where two faiths collide. The Panther's creed says keep the enemy far and kill him clean. The American's creed says cut the space, accept the risk, decide faster. One of these creeds will be broken in the next minute. The other will survive, but it will pay a price that no medal can refund. Listen closely to this morning. You will hear not only the story of a famous tank commander, but the last thoughts of the men who lose to him, and the quiet truth of the people who shelter and wait. In the next moments, 2 shells will end one life, shatter another, and close the door on the most lethal run any American tank crew ever made. What happens in that street will tell you why empires fall, why courage is not the same as safety, and why victory never comes free. Keep watching. In the next minute, someone crouched behind a gun sight will press his cheek to cold metal and decide who does not go home. He believes he is already on the losing side of history. He still wants to win this one street. September 19, 1944. Münsterbusch, 6 miles from Aachen. A Panther tank waits between 2 stone houses, its long 75mm gun pointed down a narrow lane. In the cellar beneath, a mother holds a child and tells him to breathe quietly. Dust falls when a distant shell touches earth. Up above, the Panther's commander listens for the sound that matters, not the shell that screams, but the engine that growls. He counts his ammunition in whispers. He feels the cold of the periscope cup. The Reich that promised victory at long range has shrunk to the length of this street. The morning smells like damp plaster, diesel, and old smoke. The west wall, the Siegfried Line the Americans talk about, sits behind them like a row of dull teeth. It was built to hold back invasions, to make map lines eternal. Now it is only a mark on a map where men fall and neighbors whisper prayers. The Panther crew knows a lesson they were never meant to learn. In defeat, even good armor does not make you safe. Safety becomes a word that older men used. Down the road, a Sherman tank rolls forward with a name painted in white block letters. In the mood. It is the 3rd Sherman to wear that name. The first burned after a Panzerfaust shot through its side in a village called Lafayette. The second vanished in fire when American P-38s mistook it for the enemy and sent rockets in low. The man who keeps repainting those words stands tall, in the commander's hatch. He is told to stay on the flank, stay safe. He does not believe in safety. He believes in speed, surprise, and closing distance until the fight cannot be decided by paper rules. He is Lafayette Pool. The Germans do not know his name. They know only that a certain American tank keeps arriving first, turns corners faster than expected, and fires before others even see targets. They do not know that his 2 lost tanks did not break his will. They do not know that today he has a different gunner in the turret. Willis Oller, the soot-faced man who once seemed to see all of France through a sight, is back in the United States for a time. In his place sits PFC Paul Kenneth King, 20 years old, steady hands, no time to become part of the crew's rhythm. In a war where seconds are the difference, small changes can become destiny. On the American radio net, a protective voice has said the words that sound like love and fear at once. No spearheading today, Pool. You're going home for a war bonds tour. Stay on the flank. It is a strange promise to make in a place like this, where every street allows only one truth. Whoever shoots first lives longer. Pool rides exposed. He always does. He is claustrophobic in the turret. He wants to see with real eyes, not through glass. He knows that exposes him to fragments and bullets. He accepts that cost because the payoff is this. He can sense the shape of danger before it forms. What does defeat feel like at ground level? Ask the German infantryman in a doorway 2 blocks away, hands sweating on a Panzerfaust handle. He has been told to wait until the tank is near enough that no shot can miss. He thinks of his father's workshop. He thinks of a dinner his fiancée planned months ago and never cooked. He looks toward an upstairs window and knows a family hides behind curtains. He repeats to himself the rules he learned. Hold fire. Aim low on the side, shoot once and move. But he also knows that the Americans come with infantry and machine guns and mortars, and that last time he tried to move, a burst of fire pinned him to a wall. He remembers that the last sergeant who tried to run did not make the corner. He wonders if he should fire early and live 1 second longer. What does victory feel like for one man who will not be allowed to relax into it? Ask the American driver, Wilbert Baby Richards. Small, wiry, eyes flicking left and right above his open hatch. Years ago, a hatch jammed in training, and he almost did not get out. He decided that day he would drive with the hatch open whenever he could, to see more and to escape faster. He respects fear because it keeps him sharp. He will reverse at speed if Pool commands it. He will thread his 33-ton machine down alleys that look too tight to fit a bicycle. He has learned the strange truth of this campaign, sometimes the fastest way to survive is to go forward. Now the smallest sounds matter. The Panther's gunner hears track clank and reduces his breath. The Sherman's bow gunner, Bertram's schoolboy Close, leans into his .30 caliber to cover angles that a main gun cannot engage. The American loader, Delbert Jailbird Boggs, touches the base of a 76mm round and feels the weight he must move again and again in seconds without thinking. The German loader checks his own shell, thinks about how few are left, and imagines his back aching in the next minute as hot brass hits the floor. Curiosity hides in plain sight, even now. The Americans write, "In the Mood" on their tanks. It is the title of a song by Glenn Miller. It is a rhythm played for dances and mess halls and hope. In these streets it becomes something else, a dare, a promise of tempo. The German crew has never heard that song. They have heard only propaganda reports that said, "America fights with machines, because their men are soft." That story stopped working in Normandy, when the hedgerows turned into a killing maze, and men like Pool kept coming. Pool studies the angles ahead. He knows this village hides fire. He knows the west wall is close enough that every German soldier feels the idea of home. That makes an enemy dangerous. A man who believes he defends his own ground does not break the same way as a man defending a distant hill. He reminds himself to respect that. He also reminds himself that every defender lies if you give him time. He intends not to give them time. The Panther commander faces his own test. He has to choose between two risky goods. Fire now, at the first hint of movement, and reveal his position. Or let the Sherman roll closer into the perfect box, where one clean shot can kill it, and still have time to relocate. He hears a child cough in the cellar. He does not look down. He has told himself this morning that he will do one thing right before he has to move again. He thinks, if I wait 1 second too long, I die. If I fire 1 second too soon, I miss and die. Which second is mine? A small human fact can change a morning. Pool's usual gunner is not here. King has skills. He does not yet have the quiet, unspoken timing built by shared danger. A crew becomes one mind only after enough near misses burn away extra thought. King wants to prove himself. He wants to match the cadence he has heard about. He wonders if he will be fast enough when Pool calls. Another human fact sits on the other side of the sights. The German gunner was told that his tank's gun can kill an American at a range where the American cannot reply. He believes this. He also knows that lately the Americans do not stay at those ranges. They close. They flank. They appear on the side when his sights are forward. They fight like men who accept that the first to think wins. You could walk the lane and read a whole story in what is missing. The shop with a broken sign that once sold bread. The church bell that rings wrong now because shrapnel chipped its lip. The window with the curtain pinched between broken glass. the mark of a shoe on dust at a door, smaller than a soldier's boot. A city becomes a record of decisions no one will write down. The radio crackles with other fights. A Sherman burns 3 streets over. A medic asks for smoke to cover a casualty. A lieutenant calls for engineers to clear a roadblock. A voice from higher command reminds everyone to keep intervals and not bunch up. The air above the village belongs to no one at the moment. The P-38s that once made the Americans drop to the ground in fear are elsewhere. Friendly fire is another kind of defeat that no one wants to talk about right now. Doctrines rub hard against each other in this one place. On one side, the German creed built on standoff, perfect optics, and first-round kills. On the other, an American method narrowed to simple orders. Move faster, get closer, fire first, do not let the enemy decide the terms. Each side believes time is on its side for one more shot. Each side is wrong about time in different ways. This is the part where defeat teaches manners. The German soldiers have learned to be quiet. They do not yell bravado in alleys anymore. They move when they must, and they pray in the small pauses that no one notices them. The American soldiers have learned to be humble about luck. They talk less about armor and more about seconds. They know that a shell that should have killed them sometimes does not. They also know the reverse. Poole raises his hand to signal his driver to ease forward. He keeps his head up to taste the street with his eyes. He adjusts for wind he can barely feel. He listens for a tell he can barely hear. He is not thinking about the war bonds tour. He is not thinking about numbers. He is thinking about the square of pavement ahead where a shot could come from the left, the right, or the front. He has a sense for places where enemies would like to be. He trusts that more than any map. The Panthers commander breathes out and says 2 words his gunner has practiced until they live in his bones. On the American side, Poole begins to form the first syllable of a command that has saved them again and again. Between those 2 breaths, the story of 2 armies meets and argues in metal and smoke. What if the Panther fires and misses? What if King fires and the round strikes true? What if a child coughs again at the wrong moment and a soldier's mind flinches and the shot goes wide? What if Richard sees something with his open hatch that a closed hatch would have hidden? How many futures are hiding inside this single minute? You think you know the end, because history books use big words about victory and defeat. But the men inside this minute do not care about big words. They care about minutes. They care about the next corner and the next breath. They care about whether the hatch opens on the first try. The strangest curiosity is that both sides think of home now. For the German, home is a roof above his head, a cellar he will not sleep in tonight because he must move again. For the American, home is a thought handed to him in orders. Stay safe. We will send you home to sell. Bonds and shake hands. Both pictures are soft. Both are dangerous to believe in right now. So the Panther steadies. The Sherman inches. Stones crack under pressure. Somewhere a dog barks and then falls silent. The mother in the cellar counts to 10 and tells herself she will not count again. A clock in a smashed room still ticks, small and stubborn. We stop here, on the lip of the shot, in the breath between 2 decisions. You have met the street and the people in it. You have heard the thinking of a losing crew and a winning crew that does not feel safe. You have seen how a promise to be careful can become a risk. The next sound will change everything. But to understand why the man in the open hatch refuses safety, and why the men in the hidden tank trust in distance that keeps shrinking, you need to know where these creeds came from. The answer starts far from Münsterbusch, years before this street, with a farm boy who chose a turret over a desk and a doctrine that chose range over fate. If you ask the men who will lose why they lost, they will not point to a miracle weapon. They will point to a habit. Somewhere far from their borders, a tall farm boy decided he would not fight by their rules. That decision, taken long before Münsterbusch, is part of why a nation with better guns still could not stop him. South Texas is a harsh teacher. Lafayette Green Pool grew up where the sun bakes the fields and water is pulled by hand. In Odom and Sinton, summer meant over 100 degrees and little rain. The house light came from a radio when batteries could be afforded. Work meant rope and plow, fence and sweat. If you have ever tried to fix something with what you have, not what you wish you had, you know the school that raised him. He ran hard enough on a football field to be noticed, and studied hard enough to graduate as valedictorian from Corpus Christi College Academy. He went to Texas, College of Arts and Industries, to be an engineer. That mattered later. Tanks reward minds that like machines and hate excuses. Boxing taught him the rhythm of violence without hatred. He won 41 amateur bouts without a loss. That is not a number. It is a habit of getting hit and thinking faster anyway. The National Golden Gloves invited him. He turned it down. He chose study. Later he climbed into a ring in England with Joe Louis on July 4, 1944, and learned something you already know from your own life. Confidence is not enough when someone else has more skill. Louis embraced him mid-spar and said, "White man, I'm going to teach you a big lesson." And he did. The lesson was not humiliation. It was clarity. Power without timing is waste. Aggression without patience is a tell. Poole kept that lesson in his pocket when the battlefield became crowded with choices. He enlisted on June 14, 1941, exactly 6 months before Pearl Harbor. He was 6'2", about 175 pounds, an athlete with the mind of a mechanic. The Army gave him the 3rd Armored Division, activated in April 1941, a formation that would be called Spearhead. It taught him that machines do not forgive. In Louisiana, he learned how a tank sounds when it is right and how it lies when it is not. In the Mojave, he learned to drive through dust, thick as anger and heat, that makes steel expand and seals fail. At Indiantown Gap, he learned trees and hills and how radios carry good orders and bad panic. Field problems were not games. They were proof that the second button you press can matter more than the first. If you have ever had to make a decision at work in 3 seconds with incomplete information, you have felt the smallest fraction of what Poole turned into instinct. Someone offered him a commission. He refused. An officer might command from a map and a radio truck. Poole wanted the turret, the blast, the view that made sense of noise. Leadership to him was not distance, it was closeness. If you lead a team, you know this choice. Do you stand back and coordinate, or do you stand close and decide when it costs you? He chose close. His men would follow him because his hand would be on the same hot steel. The crew that gathered around him fit like parts that were meant to be together. Wilbert "Baby" Richards was small and drove with his hatch open because once a hatch trapped him, and he promised never again. If you have ever sat near the door at a crowded event because you need to see your way out, you understand him. Bertrand "Schoolboy" Close looked too young and wore wire-rim glasses, and he was merciless with the bow machine gun. Technician 5th grade Delbert "Jailbird" Boggs was thin and fast with the 76mm rounds, and his nickname, born from a story about a courtroom choice between prison and the Army, was less important than the fact that he never missed a beat. Willis Groundhog Oller kept his eye in the sight until soot marked his face the way sun marks a farmer's arms. Hearing Poole say, "Gunner on," made him come alive like a switch closing a circuit. The crew called themselves the Pups. They called Poole War Daddy because his demand felt like care, and his care felt like command. Training made their steps one habit. Load, aim, fire, reload, again and again until it was a single breath. A good crew could spot, range and fire in 5 seconds. Poole's did it in 3. Think of a kitchen with 5 people cooking the same meal every night until hands find knives without looking and the pan is hot before you need it. That is what their turret felt like, and the stakes were higher. Every second they saved was a second the enemy could not use. Across the ocean, men who would become the losers were building their faith into steel. German Panzer doctrine trusted optics, long barrels, and the clean logic of distance. It worked in Poland, in France, in Russia when the fields were open, and surprise was theirs. But habits cut both ways. When you teach a generation that superiority lives at long range, you do not notice fast enough when a stranger refuses the range. If you have ever faced a rival who breaks the rules you expected to control the game, you know the shock the Panther crews felt later when Shermans closed like fists. In September 1943, Poole crossed to England with the 32nd Armoured Regiment. 9 months of waiting became a pressure you can taste. Training continued on the English countryside around Liverpool and Bristol. Security was tight. Rumours ran wild. Men wrote letters and walked circles in fields that looked like postcards, until someone said to board a ship. Somewhere in that wait, he stepped into the ring with Joe Louis and got the lesson he needed. The fastest way to survive is not to swing first, but to see first and then swing without thinking twice. During those months, the Army did something simple and radical. It let crews practice until they became muscle with minds attached. Radios stopped being noise and became chords. Tank, infantry, engineer, artillery, each part learned to listen for the others like a band hears the rhythm section. The Pups turned work into reflex. If you are part of a team that anticipates each other in meetings or on a factory line or on a sports court, you know the power of this. It makes you brave, it makes you quick, it also makes you visible. The fastest movers draw the hardest tasks. Poole chose In the Mood as the name for his tank, like someone choosing a song for a fight. It was not romantic, it was rhythm. It told the crew how to think, keep tempo, keep pressure, keep moving. If you have ever set a playlist to run you through a hard task because the beat keeps you honest, you understand how that white paint became a promise. Here is where the loser's perspective becomes clear. While Poole tuned his crew to close distance, German instructors still taught gunners to win the first shot at 1,500 meters. Panthers and 88s were good enough to make that true on paper. But paper has no hedgerows. Paper has no alleys. Paper has no Richards reversing a 33-ton tank down a bent street faster than a man could sprint, because Poole needs a different angle now. The German doctrine was a beautiful, sharp tool. The battlefield dulled it every day. Think about the last time a habit kept you safe for years and then suddenly failed you. Maybe a shortcut at work stopped working because the system changed. Maybe a story you told yourself about a relationship broke the day someone stopped believing it. German crews drove into that feeling in 1944. Poole was the human trigger that made it happen faster. If you want to ride with this story as it tightens, do one simple thing now. Click the red button in the corner of your screen to subscribe. Join the small group of people who want to see how courage, training, and doubt shape each other at close range. You will not miss the next chapter when the hedgerows put every idea on trial. You will be part of a community that listens to voices on both sides, including the men who lost and the civilians who paid. This is not just a history. It is a way to see your own choices under pressure. Tap it now, and stay with us as the street narrows. By June 1944, the waiting ended. The division boarded at Weymouth on June 23rd. The next day it came ashore on Omaha Beach in rain and wreckage. The first In the Mood, a 75mm M4A1, rolled off without incident. In the days after, the crew cleared waterproofing, fired guns, and tested radios, while the beach looked like a scrapyard of nations. If you have ever stood in a place after a storm and known that cleanup is the beginning, not the end, you can see what they saw. In those hours, Poole made choices that defined the next 83 days. He would stay exposed in the hatch, because seeing is living. He would trust the driver who feared being trapped, because fear that you tell the truth about can become a strength. He would demand that his loader and gunner be faster today than yesterday, because the enemy was learning too. He would refuse the safety of distance, because the other side needed it to win. On the other side, men in Feldgrau pressed their backs to hedge and wall and waited to do what they had been trained to do: kill from range, vanish, repeat. Only the range collapsed. This is hard to accept when your identity is tied to your tool. It is like a violinist being told the hall now only accepts drums. Some adapt, some do not. History does not care who meant well. Poole's leadership style had a cost and a gift. He never asked his men to go where he would not go first. The gift was trust. The cost was exposure. If you manage anyone, you know that trade. Stand in front and some days you get hit first. Stand behind, and some days you do not see the hit coming at all. His men loved him because he was in the blast with them. They also knew that one wrong second could finish them all. The nickname War Daddy sounds like a movie line now, but it grew from nights of drill when a young sergeant pushed his crew until their hands hurt, then made sure their gear was fixed and their stomachs were full. Care and demand are a rare pair. He held them together. On the German side, there were commanders who tried the same. They lost more men as the summer advanced, and the space for care shrank as fuel and time ran out. 9 months in England taught patience. Joe Louis taught humility. Louisiana and the Mojave taught endurance. Engineering taught respect for mechanisms. Boxing taught timing. Farming taught that hard work is not a guarantee, only a condition. All these schools produced the same result: a man who would break the enemy's habit by attacking the distance itself. If you are still wondering how better machines lost to a crew in a thinner tank, stay with us. The next road is lined with hedgerows, and every field is a courtroom. The earth will judge the idea that long range is safety. The verdict will come fast at dusk, at 30 yards, with a single armor-piercing round, through a turret ring. The losers will tell you what it felt like to believe in a clean kill and meet a dirty, close human one instead. June 24th, 1944. Omaha Beach still smells like wet earth and diesel when the 3rd Armored Division comes ashore. Wrecked landing craft lie in the surf like broken ribs. German bunkers stand open with their concrete torn and their barrels silent. The rain makes everything heavier. Canvas, boots, voices. A Sherman with a white name on its hull, in. The Mood rolls down a ramp and grinds past the skeletons of yesterday's battle. The men inside do not talk much. They listen to the engine and to their own breath. And they look at the scars in the sand that say the enemy fought hard here and will fight hard again. The first days are work, not glory. Waterproofing comes off. Radios are tuned. Guns spit test rounds into grey sky. The crew settles into its roles like hands finding familiar tools. Driver Wilbert, Baby Richards, keeps his hatch open because a jammed hatch once tried to trap him. He has learned to love fear when it tells the truth. Bertrand Schoolboy Close points the bow machine gun at the openings where a man with a rocket might appear. Technician 5th grade Delbert Jailbird Boggs stacks the 75mm and then the 76mm rounds in his head, knows their weight in his hands, knows the feel of steel when seconds matter. Gunner Willis Groundhog Oller wears the sight like a second eye. Lafayette Pool stands in the hatch and watches the country they must enter. A green chessboard of hedgerows that will erase every long-range promise anyone ever made. Normandy's hedgerows are not shrubs. They are earthen walls, 3 to 4 feet high, grown over with root and thorn and thyme. They make every field a room with doors small enough for one tank at a time. You cannot see what waits in the next room until you smash the wall. The defenders have learned to wait with a 75mm or an 88mm behind the green. The first American units to attack learned in blood that a tank trying to climb over exposes its belly. So American engineers cut steel from German beach obstacles and welded prongs to Shermans. They called them rhinos. It is a small act with a large meaning. Take the enemy's wall and make it a key. On June 29th, near Villiers-Fossard, the 3rd Armored Division begins its first real fight. A reinforced Fusilier battalion of the German 353rd holds a salient of fields and lanes like a clenched hand. Combat Command A attacks with artillery first, and then with tanks and infantry in step. In the Mood moves with Task Force Y on the right flank, hedgerow to hedgerow. Visibility is measured in seconds and yards. Radio chatter joins the shriek of incoming and the deep bark of 75s. Pool's crew finds German vehicles in gaps and destroys them. They kill in the dozens and move to the next field because that is the only logic here. What do you do when the world shrinks to the next hedgerow and the next breath? The loser's view is close and low. A German gunner lies behind a hedge counting to 3 before he looks up because he knows American scouts watch for any motion. A Fusilier presses his face into roots and thinks of letters he owes and cannot send. A lieutenant whispers, "Hold until they are near," because he knows his gun is most deadly at the moment, before it is lost. The hedgerow amplifies courage and fear. It makes every mistake final. The Panther and the 88 are gods of long range, but here in these rooms of earth they must learn to fight at arm's length. Les Forge is supposed to be clear. It is not. A German soldier steps from a doorway with a Panzerfaust and fires from less than 50 yards. The shaped charge slams through in the Mood side, and heat and metal tear into the crew space. There is no time for anything but order and reflex. Chapley ski. Yells bailout. Oller moves. Richards and Close dive through their hatches. Boggs squeezes through steel that suddenly feels too small. They run before ammunition cooks off and the tank becomes a furnace. The German who fired does exactly what he was trained to do. He has a perfect moment. It does not change the day after. The crew gathers itself and keeps moving with other tanks, still in the fight, without the steel they lived in an hour ago. That night and the next day, the fight for Villiers-Fossard goes on, a grinding push through fields that hide teeth. 31 American tanks are lost in 2 days. The attack still succeeds. The lesson is awful and necessary. Even when a defender spears a tank from 10 steps, the push does not stop if the crews survive and return to the line. The enemy's small victory is real. It is also smaller than the machine moving against him. When Pool receives a replacement tank, it is different. M4A176W, wet. Stowage wraps the ammunition racks in fluid to smother fire before it can run. Men have called the Sherman a Ronson, a lighter that lights every time. Wet stowage forces a new joke, that this one might not. The 76mm gun gives the crew a tougher bite against armor. Against a Panther's face, it still loses at distance. Against a Panther's side, it wins from far away. The high explosive shell is weaker than the 75mm, so infantry and walls take a different kind of hit. The crew learns the new balance in hours, not weeks. They paint the name again and climb in. Would you still stand in the open hatch, with new steel under you and the memory of fire behind you, or would you close the lid and go blind? Hedgerow fighting reshapes Pool's mind into a map of shadows and edges. He learns to read the folds in brush that a gun tube makes, the line of crushed grass that a gun crew leaves, the way a field that should be quiet looks wrong when men have planned a shot from it. He stops believing in luck and starts believing in patterns. He sees the world the way a boxer sees a shoulder drop before a punch, or the way a farmer smells rain before a cloud. In one dusk near Le Mesnil-Hermann, he almost halts the column for the night. A shape forms ahead, a 40mm anti-aircraft gun on a ground mount, its crew at ease in the dim. He does not radio. He shouts one word, fire. Ola is already at the site. The 76mm slams, and the German position disappears. 3 seconds from sight to ruin, that is not magic, that is practice. On the other side, a Luftwaffe auxiliary drafted into ground duty thought he had a night to sleep by his weapon. He watched the last planes cross hours ago. He stacked his equipment neatly, because order is a way to make fear smaller. He did not expect an American tank to see through dusk. He did not understand yet that Pool's crew had cut their reaction time until it felt like a sense more than a skill. He died before he understood. His friend crawled away with his ears ringing and a mouth full of earth and a new belief, that the enemy would find them even at night. If you knew a man could make a decision faster than you can form a thought, would you change the way you wait for him? The hedgerows teach another savage fact. Night does not belong to either side. It belongs to the crew that carries their day reflex into dark. Near Colombier, a sudden turn brings a Panther and Pool's Sherman almost nose to nose at 30 yards. Both commanders shout. The Panther fires twice in reflex. One round whistles over the Sherman's turret. One ricochets and misses the belly by inches. Ola fires once. The 76mm round cuts the Panther at the turret ring, the seam where power turns to weakness. Ammunition inside catches, and orange light floods the lane. The American crew backs away from the fireball before it explodes, and the light makes new targets visible to the platoon like ghosts revealed by a match. The men who lose in that instant have followed their doctrine from the first day they wore grey. They believe in first-round kills, in perfect gunnery at long range, in the clean work of an equal duel across open land. They do not believe in a 30-yard collision in a hedgerow night. The Panther's power is not a myth. Its gun can kill a Sherman at distances the American cannot answer. But power built for one kind of fight can become a trap in another. The German crew dies like professionals caught in the wrong job. Their loss spreads a different truth down the American radios. Tigers and Panthers can burn up close if you do not let them choose the terms. Between these bursts of violence, there is the slow pressure of impossible ground. Infantry moves along hedges, throwing grenades into gaps and waiting for the kick of return fire. Engineers crawl forward with Bangalore, torpedoes and clippers, working in spaces a man can barely fit. Medics run quietly with bandages and morphine and prayers that they will not step on mines hidden under leaves. Civilians count their plates and decide which pot to cook with when there is no milk and no flour, and a soldier might pound on the door at any time. A dog pads behind a squad because dogs do not understand flags. How long can a mind live stretched thin between the next hedge and the last scream? Pool changes in little ways that add up to survival. He trusts his first sight more than his second guess. He cuts across fields at angles that make German firing lanes empty. He listens to the way artillery lifts and learns to move into the space where shock holds men still. He teaches his driver to reverse as precisely as he advances, because retreat is not defeat if it buys a better shot 5 seconds later. He learns to ask, where would I hide an 88 if I were them? And then he aims at that place before a muzzle flashes. On the German side, Shortages teach their own lessons. Ammunition is counted and relocated by hand. Fuel arrives late or not at all. Replacements come with faces that look like boys. Officers stand on roads and argue about whether to hold here or fall back to the next line. The west wall seems close enough to lean on and too far to save them. A fusilier in a ditch watches an American tank with welded rhino teeth smash the wall he built all morning. He has one rocket and two choices: fire and run, or wait for a better angle and maybe die. He fires and runs and makes it 3 houses before a burst of machine gun fire cuts the street, and he dives where a family hides, and his breath is loud with theirs. The first in the mood is gone. The second is weeks away in a fate no one can see yet. The third waits in a future morning at Münsterbusch. Before any of that, the hedgerows demand everything. They punish bad habits and reward small bravery. They give Pool a stage suited to his gifts: speed, close distance, training turned into instinct. They give German defenders the kind of fight that kills many Americans and still cannot stop the advance. They give civilians more reasons to hate the sound of engines. What would you take from this ground if you had to carry it for the rest of your life? Pride, guilt, numbers, names. By late July, the sky prepares a different lesson. American. Heavy bombers mass for Operation Cobra. The plan is simple and brutal. Turn lines into open country with thousands of tons of bombs, then send the armor through the gap. For weeks, the hedgerows have kept everyone close and blind. Soon, the roads will open, and miles will replace yards. The men who learn to kill in rooms of earth will have to relearn in motion. A broken German army will try to run and still bite hard when cornered. Mistakes will come from new directions. Some will fall from above wearing friendly stars. The hedgerows have been a tribunal for ideas. Pool's idea, close the range, decide faster, has held. The German idea, hold at distance with superior firepower, has bent and broken where mud and roots refuse clean shots. The next test will be different. The verdict will be written in smoke on highways and in the shrapnel patterns on village squares. The pups will find out if their rhythm survives speed. The men who lose will find out if retreat is a road or a trap. And somewhere over a French village called Fromental, a wrong decision will fall from the sky. Operation Cobra begins with a sky that trembles. On July 25, 1944, more than 1,500 American heavy bombers and 380 medium bombers drop nearly 4,000 tons of bombs south of St. Lo. The earth lifts and falls like a lung under fire. German trenches vanish. Lines that seemed solid become smoke and holes. The air itself hurts to breathe. The shock waves ripple through both armies. A strange and bitter fact follows the thunder. More than 100 Americans die from short bombing, including Lieutenant General Leslie McNair, one of the highest-ranking U.S. officers killed in the war. Even victory falls on its own sometimes. When the dust clears, the hedgerow war that measured life in yards becomes a chase. The 3rd Armored Division pushes through the broken crust, and the roads open like veins. Tanks begin to move at 20 to 30 miles per hour. The Spearhead name stops being a symbol and becomes a speed. Villages flash by with white flags hung late in windows. Other villages fight and then burn. German units, shaken, scattered, short on fuel, try to regroup. Some succeed for a day. Some vanish into the fields and do not appear again except as prisoners on the side of a road. In this rush, Pool's crew do what they were built to do. They find the edge of decision and live there. At dusk near a hedgerow, Pool's instant command turns a 40mm position into splinters in 3 seconds. At night near Columbia, they meet a panther at 30 yards and kill it with one shot through the turret ring before the German crew can steady. A panther's gun can kill a Sherman at more than 2,000 yards. A panther's armor can break most frontal hits, but that truth belongs to daylight in open fields. In these narrow lanes, with nerves hot and vision poor, the better machine loses to faster minds. The loser's view in this new phase is simple and cruel. A German radio operator holds a handset and hears 2 voices argue about where the new line should be. A supply sergeant counts fuel drums that do not arrive. A Panther commander climbs down to feel his track because a bearing sings a bad note. He thinks, if we stop now, we die later. If we press on, we might die sooner. A driver keeps the revs low to stretch diesel, and that tiny caution adds seconds to every turn the enemy needs. The men still believe in their guns. They do not believe in time anymore. In late July and August, the front becomes a net. North of the American thrust and south of the British and Canadians, the noose draws tight around the German 7th Army and 5th Panzer Army. Falaise becomes a word that means traffic jam and slaughter at the same time. Thousands of German soldiers run or ride carts through narrow escape routes under artillery and aircraft. Many throw away rifles and pick up white cloths. Others try to punch out with tanks and half-tracks. The 3rd Armored Division's radios hear everything at once: targets on the move, prisoners gathering, bridges mined, and cries for engineers. The ground is a confusion of uniforms and smoke. There is no clean lane for mercy. When Poole's bowgun chatters against a cluster of fleeing soldiers, it is not because he forgot they are human. It is because if they reach the next ridge, they will be handed new weapons and the same orders. There are numbers that frame this chaos. The United States will produce about 49,000 Sherman tanks by the end of the war. Germany will build roughly 6,000 Panthers and about 1,350 Tiger I tanks. On paper, many German tanks are superior. Their guns reach farther. Their armor is thicker, but statistics hide a harder truth. The average Sherman in Europe survives about 11 days in combat, and crews often die or are burned before they ever see the enemy that kills them. The men who live a full campaign do it by seconds and small decisions. Poole's crew take those seconds like a craft. That is why they keep appearing first, and why they keep surviving when others do not. There is a day near Dyson, Belgium, when the war swings wide in a few minutes. Poole leads a platoon because there are not enough officers at hand. The column takes fire from the left. He leaves the road to murder the ambushers, half-tracks and cars trying to flee. He kills 6 vehicles fast, then hears that a Panther is ahead, hull down, killing his own column. He whips back at unsafe speed, because safe speed is a myth right now. He finds the Panther, still fixed forward, still hunting Shermans in front of it. He slides into the German's blind angle and orders a single shot into the side below the turret. The Panther burns. The blast throws a turret clear moments later. Poole does not love killing. He loves ending. High problem fast. In these days he also sees strange and bitter things. Friendly P-38 Lightnings, hunting armor from above, find Shermans in a French village called Fromental. From the sky, tanks look like tanks. The pilots do not see stars on hulls or names on paint. They see shapes that fit their mission. Rockets streak down. One hits in the mood square. Another rips the engine deck. Fire wraps the turret. Poole orders the bailout he has practiced too many times. They run, with burns and rattled bones. The tank that became an emblem of a method dies under an American mistake. Later, airmen will be told, "Be careful." Ground crews will be told, "Mark clearer." The crew will be told to take a new tank and keep moving. And they do. It takes less than 2 months to go from beach to border. Between August 29 and 31, Poole earns the Distinguished Service Cross. In those 72 hours, he advances ahead of his task force, sometimes alone, destroys 4 tanks, 2 of them Panthers, 3 anti-tank guns, and about 50 vehicles that move men and ammunition. The citation says his action allows a rapid advance with minimum casualties. The reality is uglier and more precise. He draws the enemy's fire by being where the enemy expects a larger force to be, kills them from angles they do not expect, and survives because his crew does not waste seconds. Every round he fires removes a German machine from the next hour. Every German gun he silences means some other American does not die at the next hedgerow or intersection. The losers' voices remain in this rush. A German corporal sees a single Sherman coming faster than it should and calls it in as a column because he cannot believe one tank advances like that. A gun crew pulls a lanyard that snaps a fire they have fired 100 times. The round lands a foot off because their position was beautiful on a map and bad on a field. A Panther crew hears the word Flieger, too late to look up before the ground throws them forward. A teenager in Feldgrau who has survived 3 days without sleep puts his hands up in a ditch when a tank with a white star stops above him. He says a word he never thought he would say to an enemy: please. The 3rd Armored Division crosses into Belgium along roads where civilians hang flags overnight. The Red Ball Express becomes a river of trucks pushing fuel forward because tanks without fuel are monuments. German columns try to cut across these roads and get trapped and burned. Somewhere in that mix, Pool's crew loses in the mood again to friendly rockets and refuses to break. Within days, they are handed another M4A176W. Wet stowage and practice feel like a kind of grace in a year that does not have much. By early September, the numbers that hang on Pool's name are already hard to believe. 258 enemy vehicles destroyed in 83 days of combat, 12 confirmed. Tank kills, over 1,000 enemy soldiers killed or wounded, about 250 prisoners captured, 21 major attacks led. The 3rd Armored Division's own record matches the push, more ground covered and more enemy equipment destroyed than most American armored divisions. This is not only a story of a man, it is a story of a method that many others imitate as best they can. And yet, there is a law that follows the fast. The more times you stand where fire is heaviest, the more likely it finds you. Division headquarters knows it. They cut orders. Complete one last mission, then Pool and his crew will go home to sell war bonds. It is a strange gift to give a man who does not fear the front and does not trust quiet rooms. It is given anyway, because legends can sell bonds in theaters while others fight through winter. On September 19, 1944, Münsterbusch sits 6 miles from Aachen. It is a small place with stone houses and narrow streets, turned into a defensive hanot. The west wall is behind it, a row of bunkers and teeth built in the 1930s and ignored during years of attack. Now it matters again. The attack toward Aachen begins at first light. The plan places Pool on the flank, in support, not in the lead. Stay safe, someone had said. The words sit wrongly in a man who believes safety is the most dangerous lie a tank crew can tell itself. German defenders have set a Panther into a lane with a good view and a plan. The commander knows his gun can kill at range. He also knows the enemy he faces closes distance and forces angles. He chooses patience. In the cellar under his feet, a family waits, and the house itself feels like a promise that might break before noon. He has fewer rounds than he wants. He has fear. He will use both carefully. Pool's crew moves into the village with infantry on either side. Tanks fire high explosive into windows where rifles flash. Machine guns stitch stone. Richards steers to a crossroad that offers fields of fire down 2 streets. It feels good. It feels like a place where you can both support and survive. In the gunner's seat is PFC Paul Kenneth King. He is 20. He has experience, but not with this crew. The smallest gaps in timing matter most under fire. King will do what he was trained to do, and fate will decide if seconds are enough. The Panther fires twice in quick sequence. The first round punches through the turret. The second crashes into the hull. Inside a turret, blasts are not single events. They are a storm that tears steel and air. King dies instantly. He never has a chance to prove how well he might have fit the crew's rhythm. Pool is hit by fragments and concussion. His right leg is torn into a shape a body cannot use. The tank begins to roll forward into a shell crater, as if pulled by the hole that has opened inside it. Richards and Close get out through the front. Boggs pulls himself through the loader's hatch, even as heat and smoke make the inside feel like a metal throat. Pool tries to pull himself out of the commander's hatch, but his ruined leg will not work. The tank tips. The hatch rim presses against him. His crew turns back. They drag him free with strength he will remember later without words. They pull him away as ammunition begins to cook off, sending shock and flame up like breath. They have seconds to spare. In those seconds, German crew far down the street hears the shots and thinks, that one is done. They are right for once. Aid men reach Pool fast. They wrap tourniquets and speak calm words that do not change much. He leaves the street on a jeep to a field hospital and then goes further back. Surgeons cut his right leg 8 inches above the knee. The decision saves his life and ends the war that defined him in the same hour. His crew stands outside and breathes air that smells like smoke and oil and bakery dust. They think about a gunner who died after knowing them for a single morning. They think about how many shots it took to end a spree that ran for 83 days. The numbers retaliate against pride now. 258 enemy vehicles destroyed. 12 confirmed tanks. Over 1,000 enemies killed or wounded. About 250 prisoners. 21 major attacks. 3 tanks lost under their bodies. 1 to a Panzerfaust in a village doorway. 1 to American rockets in Fromental. 1 to a Panther in Münsterbusch. 2 tanks burned while all 5 men got out. The last one burned with a man dead in the seat where their usual gunner had sat for most of the summer. The loser's view of this moment has its own weight. A Panther crew who did their job exactly right bought a street for their side for an hour or two. They killed the most dangerous enemy tank crew in the sector with a clean ambush. It did not change the outcome of the campaign, but in their memory, that morning will stand taller than any speech about destiny. They were told for months that the Americans were soft and that German steel made German victory certain. Then they were told for weeks that to hold their ground was to honor an army in retreat. In Münsterbusch, they are told nothing. They simply breathe through smoke and decide when to move again before artillery finds them. A fact from far above all these streets throws a longer shadow. The Reich that promised 1,000 years is down to months. Germany's oil is gone except for synthetic fuel that leaks when tanks move and stinks when engines burn. The Wehrmacht bleeds officers that cannot be replaced. The Allies run the Red Ball Express day and night, with thousands of trucks supplying divisions that never stop advancing. Industry and distance are enemies as real as any Panther. On paper, the Panther is superior. In practice, a United States that can build 49,000 Shermans and keep them fueled is more dangerous than any single machine. In the days after Münsterbusch, the news spreads. Pool is gone from the front. Men who heard his voice on the net feel the channel go quiet. Some find they miss not only his force, but his method. Close with the enemy. Decide first. Fire accurately. Never let the other side choose the terms. Other crews take the method into streets and fields he will not see again that year. The German crews who survived his run keep looking down lanes at angles only a few Shermans chose. They breathe easier when those angles stay empty. They breathe harder when another American tries it anyway. This is where parts of the story end and others begin. The street in Münsterbusch belongs to different people by nightfall. The body of a young gunner moves behind a church wall. A mother and child leave a cellar and find sunlight like a stranger. The Panther that fired slips away by a farm track because staying is death. On a cot far back, Lafayette Pool looks at a white ceiling and counts the seconds between morphine and sleep. He will not command a turret again. He will teach men to survive one. He will go home not to a parade, but to a hospital, and then to a room where he writes letters with his left leg gone and his right hand steady. If war were fair, stories would end when the best have done enough. It is not fair. It is only exact. In the exactness of 83 days, the most lethal run an American tank crew ever made closes in a hole in a village road. The lesson does not close with it. It moves on with every crew that learns to choose the range and save seconds, and with every crew that learns to fear the empty lane where a Panther waits behind 2 stone houses. After Münsterbusch, the war moved without him. Surgeons took Lafayette Pool's right leg 8 inches above the knee. The operating room was clean, bright, and far from the street where his crew pulled him from a burning turret. Morphine gave sleep. Paperwork gave names to pain, amputation, shock, evacuation. Outside, autumn rain fell on roads full of armor. Inside, a man built for forward motion lay still, listening to a silence that did not feel like safety. On the German side of that same morning, a Panther crew stowed their last rounds and slipped away by a farm track. They had done everything right and won a few hours for their line. Their victory did not change the map, it changed only their memory. The day they stopped the American who always seemed to arrive first, they carried that memory into a retreat that would not stop until the war stopped for them. For the mother and child in the cellar, the day ended with quiet that felt like guilt. Their house still stood. Another house did not. Losing a war does not end in one day. It drains through 1,000 rooms like this. Pool's statistics became words in reports. 83 days of combat, 21 major attacks led, 258 enemy vehicles destroyed, 12 confirmed tanks, over 1,000 enemies killed or wounded, about 250 prisoners taken. He received the Distinguished Service Cross for 3 days in late August, when his decisions let a task force move fast with fewer dead. He received the Legion of Merit, the Silver Star, the Purple Heart, the Belgian Fourragère, and later France's Legion of Honor. Twice he was nominated for the Medal of Honor. Twice the answer was no. The official reason said tanks are crew-served weapons, and individual heroism did not meet the standard. Men who saw him fight believed the decision was wrong. But a medal cannot give back a leg. It cannot return a gunner to his family. It cannot teach a new crew how to live. Poole chose to do the one thing a medal cannot do. He went back to work. In July 1948, he re-enlisted. He returned not to turrets but to training grounds. He taught crews to do under pressure what he had done in battle. Cut seconds, close distance, decide faster, protect each other, and never let the enemy choose the terms. He served until 1960 and retired as a Chief Warrant Officer too. 19 years in uniform, 3 months in combat that changed doctrine, and 12 years shaping soldiers who would fight in places he could not imagine. He moved to Killeen, Texas, near Fort Hood. He raised 8 children with his wife, Evelyn. He wrote letters. He went to reunions. He told the truth when asked. He kept many memories quiet, the way veterans do when words are not enough and silence hurts less. There were honors after he was gone. In 1993, 2 years after his death, Fort Knox named its tank driver simulator hall for him. Old friends and young soldiers stood under fluorescent lights and listened to a dedication speech by Lieutenant Colonel Olin M. Brewster, who had served with Poole. The room became a place where new crews would learn that speed without discipline is chaos, and discipline without speed is a target. In 2014, a film brought a version of his name, War Daddy, to millions. It was not his true story, it could not be, but it carried a piece of his method into minds that had never thought about the smell of diesel and whetstone, about how a small decision at a crossroad can end lives or save them. The most painful chapter arrived long after the shooting in Europe ended. Poole's son, Captain Jerry Lynn Poole, followed his father into service. He joined Special Forces. In March 1970, he boarded a helicopter with his MAC-VSOG team and flew into Ratanakiri Province, Cambodia. The aircraft took fire, exploded, and crashed. All 7 on board died. For more than 25 years, his body was missing. In 2001, after long work by recovery teams and forensic scientists, his remains were identified. He was buried with honors. A father who had given a leg to one war gave a son to another. Victory does not protect families from grief. It only changes the place where grief waits. When people talk about winners and losers in World War II, they reach for large numbers. The United States built about 49,000 Sherman tanks. Germany built about 6,000 Panthers, and roughly 1,350 Tiger I tanks. The Panther and the Tiger had thicker armor and stronger guns on paper. The average Sherman in the European theater lasted about 11 days in combat. These numbers matter. They explain why Germany could not replace what it lost, and why American units could keep pressing forward. But numbers hide the ground-level costs. Every tank that burns is 5 lives at risk. Every destroyed vehicle is a family far away who will receive a telegram. The industrial map of the war sits on top of a human map that no statistic can contain. The loser's perspective is not only a flag that fell, it is a chain of small lives stretched thin. German tankers learned their doctrine, followed orders and died in hedgerows and alleys where their weapons were strong and still not enough. German infantry hid in earth that made them ghosts and then graves. German civilians waited under roofs that cracked and told their children to keep breathing. Many did terrible things, many did not. Many stayed silent, all paid. The Reich promised 1,000 years and delivered ruin in 12. In the end, German defeat saved many people beyond Germany. But for those inside the defeat, it felt like cold. Hunger, arrest and loss day after day for years. The victor's perspective is not only a flag raised, it is a cost folded into afterlives. American crews learned that courage is not safety, and that method can only move the odds, never guarantee the end. They learned that friendly pilots can mistake friend for foe, that officers can die from their own side's bombs, that a safe day ordered by headquarters can turn into the day someone does not come home. They learned that leadership is not a pose. It is a promise kept under fire. Poole kept that promise until the day steel tore it from him. His legacy is not a statue. It is a way of thinking that saves lives where it can. He proved that training and leadership can overcome a stronger machine. He proved that men who move together faster than the enemy thinks can cut through plans written with rulers. He proved that a commander who stands with his crew can demand everything from them and still be loved. He proved that the sentence "safety is an illusion" is not a surrender to danger, but a demand for clarity. See more, decide sooner, accept risk that serves purpose, reject risk that serves pride. This legacy also carries a warning. The myth that better weapons win wars by themselves is lazy and dangerous. The myth that victory washes away wrongdoing is false. The myth that defeat erases humanity is false. If you look closely at a street like Münsterbusch, you see how war forces good men to do hard things, and how it tempts bad men to hide behind necessity. You see a tank commander ordering fire on fleeing soldiers because letting them regroup will kill more people tomorrow. You see a Panther crew waiting with a clean field of fire and a family in the cellar. You see neighbors who will remember uniforms and forget faces, and you see children who learn to count seconds, not years. There is a larger lesson in how Poole chose to live after the blast. He did not disappear into bitterness. He taught, he served, he stayed close to soldiers. He did not rewrite his story to make himself larger or cleaner. He kept the parts that hurt, and he carried them. The army honored him as it could. The country remembered him when it remembered. Some said he should have received the highest medal. Others said the medals did not matter. In the space between those views lies a truth. Recognition is important, but it is not the same as responsibility. Poole treated his experience as a responsibility. He handed it to others so they might leave more battlefields alive. He died on May 30th, 1991, in Killeen, Texas, at 71. He left a wife, 8 children, and a story that moved from a farm in South Texas to hedgerows in France, to a training hall in Kentucky, to a film screen that could not contain its weight. He left a set of lessons to anyone who has to make decisions under pressure. Prepare until reflex is faster than fear. Lead from where the danger is real. Choose timing over pride. Accept that luck is part of life. Make your luck with better habits. Think for a moment about what World War II asked from people who lost and people who won. It asked them to bend their ordinary lives into something hard and strange. It asked a German boy to fire at a tank from a doorway and then run past his neighbor's window. It asked an American driver to back a 33-ton machine through chaos as if it were a car in a tight alley. It asked a mother to hush a child while stone dust fell like snow. It asked men like Poole to risk every day for months and then live for years with the missing pieces. If we do not look at these people with care, we will learn numbers and miss wisdom. If this story moved you, stay with us. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next voice, the next street, the next decision. That explains a war of nations in the lives of a few. Like the video if you believe these lessons matter now. Share it so someone who only knows flags can meet the people beneath them. And please comment with your questions or your family's stories, anonymously if you wish. Your voice helps keep memory honest. Your attention helps turn memory into understanding.